about things that we like, that happen, whether we like them
or not.
We did it! Okay. All right. So today we're doing part dua or deuce or dose, depending on the language of the day you prefer, in our homeschooling. And we're going to be talking about materials, resources, and more. So we're going to be diving into all sorts of information to help make your homeschooling day smoother. So are y'all excited?
Yes.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And, as a matter of fact, before we begin, do not forget to hit the notification bell. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see all our videos as they're happening. Did you see how I plugged that? I did. I plugged.
Awesome.
All right. So, before we begin, this is always my fun one, is we're going to start off with my favorite part of the Would You Rather questions. So, Gwen, being our guest, why don't you start off? You can ask anybody out of the three of us aside from yourself.
Okay. I'll ask Whitley. So I can ask her any question?
Wait. Let me spin for Whitley. Whitley, feel afraid.
Yeah, I am. But I'm
Whitley, you get
at the same time, it's not you.
You get to pick your category, Whitley. You can choose anything.
Gwen, be easy. Oh, are we spinning?
I did. You get to pick anything.
Oh, I do?
Yeah, that's what it landed on. You got fantasy, curses, powers, potluck, unpleasant.
Let's do powers.
Powers for Whitley.
Okay, powers for Whitley. So A, sit through a tirade from Mel Gibson, or B, a spiritual lecture from Tom Cruise.
It doesn't matter who tells me mine. I'll pick the Mel Gibson one.
Which one are you doing?
The Mel Gibson.
Oh, okay. Well, you're going to get a lot of passion out of that.
I would rather
a lot of passion. I see what you did there.
Whitley, are you ready? Now, I will tell you, Whitley, for me, it's difficult to hear you. So you may want to speak out a little bit louder, if you will. Okay, so Whitley, who are you asking? Are you asking Gwen or me?
Oh, I guess I need to ask you. If not, you kind of will be asking.
Well, I mean, you get upset when it's my turn, so I'm going to spin for us. But just don't be mad if I'm good. Hold on. Okay, I get to pick. So I'm going to pick unpleasant.
Okay.
Yes.
You're going to put, which one's the unpleasant one?
Unpleasant looks like a big splotch.
Oh, okay. Always have to wear a salmon eye patch or a bagel hat.
Ooh, okay, so I'm going to go for a salmon eye patch.
Yeah.
Like the fish?
Yeah.
Like the fish.
Okay, go salmon eye patch, and I will tell you why. No, I do not like the smell of fish, Whitley, as you well know.
You would pick the fish?
No, I'm looking at the omega-3s that's going to happen because I'm going to switch eyes. And my eyes will not have wrinkles. I look amazing. When I go swimming, I can catch fish easily. So I say absolutely the salmon eye. If you wear bagels, then you got wasps, then you got ants. Who needs that? I think a salmon face mask would be really good. So I'm going for that.
And attract all the cats.
That's right. All right, Whitley. Gwen, are you ready? I'm going to spin for you. Hold on. Let's see what you get. Curses. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. Would you rather, Gwen, be a Siamese twin connected at the chin or at the soles of your feet?
Oh, God. It's horrible either way.
Yes.
Soles of my feet, I guess. But I don't know how we're getting around. But yeah, no, I don't want somebody that close to me.
You could be potentially parted at the soles.
That's true.
Yeah, I was going to say it'd be easier to part you at the sole.
There you go.
we can look at a regrafting of your skin at the soles, but from the chin, that means you're sharing a cheek.
I don't want any more chins. I need to get rid of the chins.
I get you. Well, it's a very interesting one. All right. So we're going to jump right in today on our homeschooling stuff. Last week, we kind of covered some misconceptions that might happen with homeschooling and then why we got started. So now we're going to get behind the panel and talk about the materials that we used. Now, of course, Whitley was the beginning of time. So she used a rock and a stick and kidding. But actually, why don't we start with Whitley and we'll just go Whitley, Gwen, and then myself. And just let's talk about the curriculum that you used while you were homeschooling.
Okay.
And resources.
Because I did start before the age of
when
time.
It was illegal.
I was illegal. When I started homeschooling, it was illegal until your child was 8 years old. You had to put them in school. My kids were put into a private Christian school until we moved into a state where we could homeschool, and then we started homeschooling again. My younger children have never stepped foot in a classroom until they went to college. So the difference, I've had two different experiences with kids who've been to school and kids who haven't.
Right.
But because when I started, there were no resources whatsoever. I had to think about some things to figure out where do I even begin. So the first thing was that children are all different and they have all different learning styles. And so I needed to pay attention and learn my children's learning styles. Now, when I started this and started doing this, there was no testing for a lot of the things we have today. As my children were older, I found out they had either attention deficit or autism. And it didn't matter that my children were neurodiverse or had any kind of learning disability or whatever. By learning them and learning their learning styles and catering to them, they thrived on homeschooling because they could go at their own pace. And so know your kids. The next thing I had to do was know myself, what I am capable of, what I am not capable of, what my goals are, and how am I going to achieve my goals. And since I didn't have the conventions or all the book companies and that sort of thing, I had to think, where am I going to get my resources? So originally I started out with my resources. Museums are great. And guess what? Some of the little podunk towns around you have some of the best museums. There's a town between Gwen and myself where there is literally a 19th century jail in the middle of the museum, a downtown that's maybe a block. So always look at the tourist brochures where you are and where you're going, because you can find out about these little things and these little jewels that you can find. Another thing was libraries. Libraries were great. I think we've all used those. Also, because I didn't have like a Abeka, Bob Jones, all the others that came along at the end of my homeschooling, I would go to the school old book sales. It's like at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, public schools sell off their textbooks. So if you can, yes, they do. So if you can find out when their sell-off is, and libraries will do this too, they will have old book sales. And so you can go to the old book sales and get textbooks. And that was what I did before I found the other things. Also, one of the things that I had that was very helpful for me starting out was I had developmental charts. Now, I had developmental charts from college. However, I did have the internet, but you have the internet. And I'm not going to put a link for a chart simply because there's a bajillion and one different developmental charts. And all you have to do is Google developmental charts and you can find anything that you want or need, and one that is geared towards you, your child, your whatever. So those were wonderful because I didn't have, the only way I could know that I was keeping my kids were where they were supposed to be was by looking at the developmental charts and making sure they were where they were supposed to be, because there was no testing. I also taught my kids through lecture. And one of the reasons is because I realized that once you have a college degree, your high school diploma is obsolete. And you don't even have to have a college degree. One semester of college makes your high school diploma obsolete. Going to trade school makes your high school diploma obsolete. And you can get into a community college with your SAT without a diploma. So realizing all of these things, I decided I've got to train my kids to go to college. And then it won't matter because there weren't any homeschool things. So I was trying to figure out how my kids were going to survive in the world. So because I lectured my kids, you can do science, you can do geography, you can do history, and you can do foreign languages. Doesn't matter the kid. What matters is what they do independently. So you can have all your kids together to do the experiments and everything else. Where did I get my information? Because I didn't have any books geared towards the children. I got them from our old college books. And I went through them and I taught them. The older kids may need to be the ones who lead an experiment, say. The younger ones just watch. But as they get older and you're doing the same things over and over, they learn the concepts. So it's one of those things, if you go, hey, I'm out in the middle of the woods and I can't do anything. Yes, you can, because there's so many resources available, and especially if you have the internet. And so one of the curriculums I would like to mention first is the Robinson curriculum. And it was very controversial whenever I started, and I looked into it. I purchased it. It's still available today. It's $200, and you can use it with however many kids you have, whatever grade level it is. What it was two college professors decided they wanted to homeschool their kids. One of them stayed home. The other one went to work, but the wife died. And they were like 5 or 6 kids, and they didn't know what to do. And so he designed this program so his kids could homeschool without him. So he has sold this whole curriculum for, like I said, right now, it's like under $200, and you can use it all the way through. You do have to have a math program and foreign language, but it can cover your basics. All his kids had their PhD.
Okay.
So the curriculum was very, very controversial when it first came out and when he first started selling it, because his kids were still in school. But it's been enough years now that his kids have all gotten PhDs.
Right.
So I believe that is worthy to prove that the curriculum is good. Yeah.
Sure.
The other things, and y'all probably have more of what's more current, but these are all still available. One is Abeka, and we have used Abeka Correspondence School when my kids, sometimes my kids just want to do a correspondence school and just do it on their own. Matthew C. I love Matthew C. after it came out because it's the exact way I see math. And I was teaching math. And so Matthew C. was wonderful. I love that. I love the videos. And at the time, Rosetta Stone. But you don't have to go out and purchase a program anymore because we have Duolingo. I think there's a part of Babbel that is free. The deal is, if all your kids are learning the same language at the same time, you can spatter it in here and there with what you're doing. And so those were the key things that I did. And reading, I put my own curriculum together, and so I have no advice on the reading curriculum.
I absolutely agree with you on some of your curriculum, because I've used that myself. So excellent. Look at you from the beginning of time being able to name stuff. Good classic. All right, Gwen, what do you have in your basket of tools when it came to curriculum for your children? What did you use?
Curriculum for me, at first, it was me being so concerned about at the end of the school year for these children, will I have taught them everything I need to teach them? And whatever that was at the time, or whatever I was concerned about, I needed something to give me that confidence at first. So I could just go by all these steps, and eventually I was going to have this outcome, because it just gave me a sense of security. So I went with Sonlight. Sonlight, S-O-N.
Yes.
Now, Sonlight was and still is a more costly curriculum, but it was designed to send a box of school to missionaries years ago. So it was all inclusive. And what's so cool about this is it's got an instructor's guide. Now, most things have instructor's guides now, and whether people choose to use them or not, or use part of them, it is nice to have. But this one was every subject. You had your Bible, your history, your English, your in whatever math curriculum that you chose. And of course, they had recommendations, your extracurricular, it was all in there. So I started out with Sonlight. And as you have multiple children, there's a lot of reading, which I absolutely loved these living books. It made them better readers. It was tiring at first because you're doing 2 or 3 hours or more of reading a day, especially when they're little, but it was well worth it. You got used to it. So Sonlight, I used their science for a little while, switched it to Answers in Genesis, then ended up going to Apologia. And this was as I got more confident. You go to conferences and you learn what all is out there. And if you're having any kind of issue in homeschool, be it you've got multiple children at different stages, different ages, different grades, some of these curriculums will include all of your children, but at different levels. Some of them will only include one learning style. So it just depended at the moment what would work, and Apologia ended up being a really good thing. And then when we switched going to a co-op, Apologia was usually the curriculum of choice. Sprinkled in some Abeka here and there, ended up with Notgrass, Notgrass. It's their last name. Loved it because it reminded me of Sonlight. It wasn't as heavy a curriculum load. So when you had multiple children, for me, that worked out really well. And then let's see what else. Of course, museums, being outside, hiking a lot, field trips, co-ops. Sometimes we did co-ops, sometimes we did not. It depended on where we were. If you're trying to if you want to homeschool and you're interested, knowing that state's law and just meeting those requirements first and foremost by law, then I had my own requirements of what I knew I wanted to teach and instill in my children, be it character, biblical discipleship, and so they would have that knowledge of who God was, real world things, life skills, that sort of thing. So there were certain things that I would require, but the state would require. And sometimes if they didn't require testing, I did it. Sometimes I didn't. And then I was a member of HSLDA. So that's a Homeschool Legal Defense Association. I'm still a lifetime member, even though I was homeschooling up until this year due to life circumstances, divorce after 28 years. That's a whole other podcast. And then, yeah, it will be. And unfortunately, tragedy in our family. So homeschooling stopped this year, and my youngest is in public school, and she has done really well. And for school systems, we're in a good one, a smaller country type school. It's not huge, great group of kids, but I loved being able to choose the curriculum and knowing what their material was going to be.
You guys do so good. Like, I could just listen to y'all forever. When I started, I got very overwhelmed by Sonlight, Abeka. They are very good. Let me just start off saying they're incredible. But Whitley, you definitely said something earlier, is to know yourself.
Yes.
Exactly.
I am not somebody who can do that. Now, we're just going to come at it very differently. I needed to have a little bit more freedom because I felt like those particular curriculums had a lot of grading, had a lot of hands-on, and it was just, it just was, for me, overwhelming.
Right.
Now, where I got my freedom from was from a resource called Rainbow Resource. So they're wonderful.
Yes.
They are a Christian company. And one of the things you can do is you can pick your curriculum based on the kind of teacher you are. So if you're very hands-on involved, want to know, do it all, you can get a curriculum that is based around your teaching style. Now, depending on your children, for Whitley's, your kids did something more hands-off as far as you were concerned. I kind of feel like the Three Little Bears. And when you had more hands-on, and I had hands there. So it kind of worked as far as that.
Works.
I love that. If you go to the HSLDA, and I went there today, it's so different than when I started.
Yes.
First of all, you can find homeschools in your area that they encourage that are along that whole thing. You can even homeschool through the HSLDA. They have a whole curriculum. Yeah. And it's got a whole community. So you have options. I actually encourage you to look at that because I just think it's some quality education. Had I known that, I might have done that too. But I actually went through Rainbow Resource, and the ladies there really helped me get to the curriculum. So we talked about my kids' learning style because that was important, the things that we needed to know, and then my teaching style, what could work for me, so I wouldn't feel like a failure. In this part of homeschooling, you may at one point feel like you failed. Right. And I did. And you feel guilty for bringing your kids out of school where you're guaranteed an outcome and you don't know what your outcome is necessarily going to be. Yeah. And in my case, you would not necessarily look at me and say that should be a teacher of anybody's children. My parents were not big fans. I know.
You taught my children. You taught my kids.
I was going
I don't necessarily fit into that mold. And we talked about on those misconceptions, but having a support system like the HSLDA that'll help you find co-op to help you, because like for science, I hated science. I'm not a science person at all. But in our co-op, we had a really great lady who did the science. So it completely counts. And it wasn't just one science. She did all sorts of different kinds of sciences, dissections and all the things you wouldn't want to get your hands dirty doing. But anyway, I thought those were cool. So my favorites, I have them written down. I loved for history. There's a history called Story of the World. Now, why this one is important. It's a wonderful history. It actually starts off in, I want to say, maybe elementary, and it can actually go through to high school, believe it or not. And it comes with activity books. So as you're learning the history, maybe making paper, there's crafts and stuff you could do. An interesting thing about this particular history is that this history is going to come up in your kids' college. Why I know this is I've had 4 children all go to college, 1 left to graduate, and they have come to me saying, Mom, we learned this in history today. We've already covered it. I was, of course, shook because I did not think that was possible, that we were teaching to that level, but kids can learn so much. And these lessons are dealt with in a story. How great is that versus a textbook? You get a story to teach and you get things to kind of back it up and experiments to do. And it just really helps you appreciate your history. And I loved that. And as a matter of fact, they all kind of have a love of history. So Story of the World is one of my favorites.
Love it.
I did Saxon Math.
Yes.
Now,
I did that for a while too.
I did. So for me, okay, so I'm going to go old school. I'm learning math again with them because, as you get an adult, are you really looking at all this stuff? No. So I got Saxon Math, and we would actually do the entire book. So in my schooling experience, what would happen is, however far you get you get a little refresher when you started the next year, and then you're on to a whole new thing. And my problem is my education had gaps. So I don't have any knowledge, and that would include English. It didn't matter what it was because they're trying to keep up with what the state was saying. But we had these really big gaps, and I felt very stupid because I couldn't connect how we got to here, from here to here, because we weren't being taught that. We were being refreshed, and then we're on to these other things. I recommend is finish the curriculum, finish it to its entirety. You paid for it, and you're not going to be defeated your kids will not be cheated by you finishing it. You can finish all those lessons, and we did. And they became better at math than I did. I now can do math in my head. They'll ask a question, what is this and this? And in seconds, I'm like an Elon Musk in seconds. I can.
I love it. I love it. Don't play. I'm not doing trivia where there's math with you.
Okay, I know.
Another one. So we did spectrum writing. That was another one I did. So Spectrum, what's really cool is they base it on the age of your child and the grade that they're in. And they have lessons based on that. And guess what? They learned really good writing. Is their mother a very good writing? Not without ChatGPT, but I'm trying. No, they are wonderful at writing. And so Spectrum was something that I really, really enjoyed. Also, for my languages, this was before we went to Rosetta, was Switched on Schoolhouse. Now, Switched on Schoolhouse was the only lesson we did. I have a pen, by the way. It's a fun pen. It's like a bean sprout pen, but anyway. But Switch on Schoolhouse was really great. It was the only DVD DVD lesson that we actually did. I just was not into the putting him in front of a computer and there you learn. That was just me. I like, because if I had to step in and help, there's no way I could help them in that. Like, you'd have to go through a whole different group of people to do it. But Switched on Schoolhouse was different. We had some learning French, some learning Spanish, and that actually helped when they did go to college, because in college you do have to take a language. Is there anything I'm forgetting as far as that goes? Okay, I have one for you. Gwen, I'm going to aim this one at you because I know you've gone to these. How do we find homeschool fairs, and what do they have available at them? Because I think that would be a wonderful resource. What happens at them? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Sure. Well, when you move around, there's going to be different towns. It could be near you. It could be a couple hours away, a few hours away, where there will be homeschool fairs, homeschool conferences. Sometimes if you have a good homeschool community in your area, they will do their own, usually at a local church. So what you'll need to do is find other homeschool moms, homeschool parents. You can look that up online, Facebook now, Google those, or you can look up homeschool conferences in your area. Now, in North Carolina, there were different conferences than there are here in Texas. And the one that we have here in Texas is Teach Them Diligently. I believe there is one more. I tend to line up with Teach Them Diligently with their speakers, the types of curriculum, even their statement of faith. So I chose to go to theirs since we have lived here. And that has been really, really good. So when you go, there's going to be a ton of resources. Again, it can be very overwhelming, but like y'all have both mentioned, know yourself, know your children. The curriculum, it mattered to me if I liked it too. Just like you were saying, Jessica, it needed to be within my teaching style, but absolutely cater to the learning style of whichever child or multiple children. So there's a lot to choose from. So when you know that, you can kind of narrow it down. They'll have Rainbow Resource, booth there, lots of other curriculums. Yeah. So you get a lot of support just by looking it up. Again, HSLDA, looking up homeschool co-ops and conferences and groups.
Right.
And again, you don't have to join all of these things. You can pick and choose for whatever season of life you're in at the moment, if it fits, the time of year when they have the conferences. But I highly recommend the conferences. That's what I first did when my kids were like 2 or 3 years old.
Did you sit through any of the speakers? Did you feel like it gave you more confidence listening to them, or gave you a better direction of what you wanted to do?
Absolutely. And it was very encouraging. And sometimes we think we're not doing enough, and sometimes we're really doing way more than is necessary, which can be a good thing and can be a not good thing, depends on what that is. But you can, feel a lot more encouraged knowing, you know what, I do all of that. I'm okay. We're good. We're going to breathe and we're going to be okay. I don't have to check off every box. We're fine. And they would also, in the conferences, it would be topic specific. Sometimes it could be even about marriage or a behavioral issue or family members that don't support you, or it could be a curriculum issue or a learning style. It could be anything. It could be a biblical, spiritual thing. that they'll talk about to women, what are you trying to do in the home? What's important? What's the tone you're trying to set while you homeschool? What's priority? Are you trying to do too much? And even like volunteering outside the home, are you even supposed to be doing that? That sort of thing. So it could be anything to do with homeschool and your lifestyle and your belief system.
Kind of like a big book fair too, because you've
Right.
got a lot of different
yeah.
people there to show you different ways for your kids to learn, and you're
Yes.
definitely going to want to put money down.
Oh, yes.
Even if you get
Prepared.
Laughing. Yeah, prepare yourself for that.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be expensive, but you're right. When you go to those, you will be purchasing things, or you can purchase later. And they do give a lot of discounts during those days that you're in these conferences.
Well, yeah, 100%. I kind of think of them in a way of like the influencers, like your child will never learn like this before, and
Yeah.
It's not a good place if you're feeling insecure about yourself. You need to kind of know yourself and be realistic. So I do appreciate that. Whitley, for you, when you came to Texas and when you got involved in because I know you did a co-op because we went.
Yeah, I did.
How did you go about finding your particular co-op?
They found me because I think it was possibly through church and other homeschooling families, and you come in. It's just kind of like in any military town. You come in and you've got the military spouses. They find out you do this, that, or the other, and they're always inviting you to come join them in the same activity. So, but I have to tell you about Homeschool Legal Defense in that we were in DC when they had just started, and one of the founding lawyers was in our local homeschool group.
Oh, nice.
So I have known about them and seen them back when they were a little bitty tiny. And what you're telling me now is, wow, they have really grown. But they were great and fantastic, even when they were little. And they were fighting for us all along.
That's awesome.
Whitley, on their site now, and I'm sure, Gwen, you already know this, they have something for military kids moving around, which
blew my
mind.
Good. Yes.
Yep. They also have, you know how, Gwen, you were talking about know the laws?
Yes.
So HSLDA knows the laws on every state. So if you are looking at, okay, I live in Arizona and I want to homeschool, what are my state laws? It's just such an easy site. That's a great place to go. So I was like, if I were going to be homeschooling today and all the things that I knew were out the window and I was starting over, I went in and I actually Googled homeschooling in my area. And HSLDA was the top one pulled up. Also, there was one called Homeschool Mom for the Oklahoma area. And what's really cool is you can go to all these different sites and they'll tell you, hey, there's a group over here you can go with. Now, not all homeschools are created equal.
Right.
Exactly.
And this is going to kind of come more to what you believe.
Yes.
Because there's some homeschoolings that not Christian based. And so you just kind of really need to find out about it to determine if that's the environment you want your kids in. We are Christian, so I wanted my children to be in a Christian homeschool group.
Yes.
Because I'd like to be around people that are closer in what I think. And especially because we are military, we're moving around all the time. The co-ops were a real savings grace because a lot of the kids in those co-ops, some were local that didn't move, but a lot were. So you got to be with people that were in a similar scenario with you. So I loved it. Whitley, going to you.
Yes.
What kind of hobbies or extracurriculars did your children do? You mentioned sports, but you did not go into that.
They did the sports, the music, the theater. So they were into baseball, gymnastics, dance. When we were in an area that had ice skating, we did ice skating. In fact, my kids were actually able to take from an Olympic skater ice skating lessons at one point in time. And then we moved somewhere else, and there wasn't an ice skating rink within 100 miles. So, but it's like the old military phrase, bloom where you're planted. It's like in homeschooling, especially if you're having to move, you take advantage of what's there before you. You can go to the community centers. There's places on posts, or they have youth activities on post. Community theaters. My kids were always involved into theater and acting, and when depending on where we were, depended on what they were able to do. And when we lived in California, it was really easy. You just go down the street and you're going to find an acting coach or a theater for the kids. Moving to Texas, I had to drive an hour and a half to get to an acting coach and for my kids to be really involved in theater. But they loved it so much and they wanted to continue with that. Another thing is your colleges, especially community colleges and university, have summer programs for children. They can be science, they can be whatever, but those are really great. And they all learned piano because piano is good for your coordination and it helps with math. So they all had to learn piano. Now they didn't have to stick with it. They all had to take 2 years, and if they hated it, they could quit because it had already done the beautiful job it was going to do.
Right.
But I always wanted them in music so they could kind of pick the instrument and worked really well. And one of the places we lived is I had a music teacher who could teach it all. And he would come to our house and take one kid at a time. So the rest of them could keep on with the work. But if you wanted to play guitar, you got guitar. If you whatever you wanted to play. And so whoever was available to teach those type of things would be what I would do. So it would change every time we moved. It would be something different. About the only thing we could count on was like baseball and dance and martial arts.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of, we're going to go over to Gwen. Gwen, this will fall right into your neck of the woods. You had children that had a lot of diverse interests. So can you cover really quickly what your homeschool extracurriculars were?
Yes. Well, at first, when we first started homeschooling, it worked out great because we had our own karate studio. So karate was a big part, particularly for the older two. So they did that, but they had a lot of outdoor hobbies as well. Rock climbing was always a really big deal in our family, and hiking, that sort of thing. And we would take a lot of the kids in our karate program on rock climbing trips as well. We just kind of integrated our likes and then just did that with the other kids as well as workshops. But we did dance for my daughters. There was gymnastics in there for one child and then for a son, and then horse riding lessons when we moved, and that was available, and they were old enough to do that, particularly for the older two. It didn't suit my youngest son. He did it for a little while and was like, no, this is not your thing. His thing was arts and cooking and building. Music for all of them to introduce them. And, some did it more than others. And then a few did that on their own: ukulele, piano, violin, trumpet, guitar, the bass. Even now, my children do that. Piano, there was lessons there. So it depended on where we were, which child. Budget always played a role. Because, and then seasonal, there was like T-ball when there was T-ball, when my oldest was the, younger, baseball, soccer, that sort of thing. And then when they were in high school for a couple of years in public school, there was soccer and then football for my oldest. Yeah.
Those are all good. I was going to say for us, I taught a theater class in co-op, so all of them were involved in that. And I will tell you, a theater class is good for your children if you're looking at college, because it helps them with public speaking.
Yes.
It helps them get rid of some
interviews.
Yes. And you did that. You taught mind drama 2 or 3 years. Yes. I loved it.
I loved it. And I will tell you that most of my children, well, all of them, have done really well in the public speaking forum, because they're so used to being in front of people that whole panic erased itself. And so I would definitely tell you theater is a great thing to do at least once. We definitely did soccer when I was in Virginia. I was part of the
No.
soccer group, and I brought that with me to Oklahoma to do.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun. My kids enjoyed that. If you have a private school, you can join them. So I had daughters who played softball and volleyball at a private school. So you can do team sports. You can actually compete against other schools alongside with your private schools because sometimes they need extra people. And so they had a great time doing that. I do want to put in there too, which I feel like I'm just the HSLDA person today. You mentioned, Gwen, about budget. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. Homeschooling, I don't know what you think it's going to cost, but it's not going to cost under $100. You literally are going to be spending several $100s to get a curriculum.
Right. And then you need ink and paper because you need a good printer.
Yeah, you will.
But I do want to say this. People think that public school is free, but you two have had kids in public school.
No,
yeah,
it's not free. You have to buy their lunches, pay for field trips, and all this other stuff. And there's a laundry list of things that they require for you to have before you start school.
That is true. I think because if you're coming from the public school spectrum, you're not putting in the fact of how much things cost.
Right.
We're getting taxed for all this, and we never see it because they take it all out of our tax money. But in this case, you have to fund it. Now, why is that I'm the spokesperson is on HSLDA, they actually have homeschool grants.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so you could potentially apply if you're in a situation, because especially if you have multiple kids, you have more than one, you're going to be spending money on your curriculum.
Right.
And you can use, like, a lot of the co-ops might have libraries where people have taken their curriculums and you can do it affordably, but you're going to pay something. So there are grants, which I was surprised. And they even do grants for homeschool co-ops even. So I was just like,
wow.
I love it.
You're amazing. All right, before we wrap this up, we're going to go real quick on a tip you may have to make a homeschool day better. So you have 30 seconds. Give me a tip. Whitley, we'll start with you.
Okay, I have two really fast. While you're working individually with one child, make sure the other child is reading, or if they're really, really young, send them off to play somewhere. But give them an activity to do while you're working with that kid. The second one was I raised my child to think of chores as being fun. When they were little and they had to do the floor, they played Cinderella. So they wanted scrub brushes to get down on the floor on their hands and knees. When we were washing, we had, back in the day, you could drop the load in one at a time, and they loved to see the washing machine eat the laundry. So things are different now. You may want to do things differently, but the whole premise behind it was chores were fun. And when they grow up thinking chores are fun and they see you doing something they can't do, it's not so bad when they grow into it. And then you don't have to worry about that teenage angst when they go, I don't want to do it, till they're teenagers.
Very true. Very good. All right, Gwen, what do you got for us?
I would say to write your goals down. What are you doing? Have it framed. Have it somewhere because you're going to need to refer back to this when you're frustrated. Keep it simple.
Exactly.
Be consistent as possible so that you know you are legitimately homeschooling, and just have a lot of grace for yourself. Love on these kiddos, as Jessica always says. Go love on that family. Go love on those kiddos. Because you've got to remember what is really truly the most important, and don't sweat the small stuff. But I would refer back to that. Just refer back to your goals. Be consistent. Try not to do too much. The curriculums can be very overwhelming, and if there is a good instructor's guide, that may be great for a go by the book person, but then there might be a time where that's going to be too much and you need to break away from that. And I eventually did that. I was so loyal to a certain curriculum.
You mature and learn as your children do.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember when you showed me your Sonlight and I hyperventilated. I was like, there's no way. I have freedom. Okay, so for mine, what I liked about the public school And I did try to make my homeschool closer to it because I was coming from a guilty feeling. Okay.
Right.
And so I liked the planners. And so what I did is I kept the planners for my kids. And depending on the state, now I lived in Virginia, you could not homeschool just because you wanted to. You had to get permission. Right. And then there would be a review. You'd have to send everything you were going to teach, your planning, and all that good stuff. Well, why a planner's good and why I love that they use those sometimes at schools is that you can write down for the week what you're doing. So, it takes off the pressure of I've got to teach English, math, science, languages, all this stuff in one day. No, you do not. So you can balance it out and you can organize it. And then they know when they get their planner, today's Monday, this is what we're going to be doing. And you have accountability to yourself. So if you're ever questioned, I know exactly where I was at. I know the lessons we were doing. It's an accountability for them and you. The next one was have fun. And that doesn't mean like
goof off.
Yeah, no, but go have fun. You have the ability, because you're done by noon or 1 o'clock, you can go to a zoo. You can go get, you can, of course, I love chore times because we would get them done and stuff, but you can go take a cooking class with them. You can go to the beach if you live near one. You are free to go do something. So don't just sit in the house wasting away. Don't lock yourself in. Like, go be in the community. Maybe you go and help at a pet shelter for the day, but go have fun, do something, because I believe the whole point of homeschooling isn't that your children raise themselves. It's that you're a part of their raising and you know them very, very, very well. And so that's going to be mine. But guys, this was good. So we have one more episode to go. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe because we want to have you on our group of members. But yes, so next time we're going to be talking the college days, graduation, and everything after that. So
I have one more thing because of what you just said. The planner, you can also go to educators' stores, the stores the teachers go to get those planners.
Yes.
You know what? Thank you so much.
Mardell's is great too.
Right. That was a very good tip. So you can go there. You can get them at Mardell's, just like what Gwen said. And they'll even have them sometimes at Walmart, but not to the level that you can get them at those stores. So thank you. Good job. I'm glad we stopped for that. All right. Well, guys, we will see you next time. I loved it. And to our visitors, I hope that we're inspiring you to homeschool. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.